Good morning.
Janelle Meader.
Nice to meet you.
Sorry.
Natalie Jones.
Janelle Meader.
Sydney Ash, nice to
Morning,
meet you.
Good morning, Sydney and Janelle. Thanks for being here this morning. And as you know, we've encountered a speed bump when clearing the land for the waterfront vision plan. Toxic chemicals have been found, which means they need to be cleaned up before the parcel can be developed. Now, however, we still have the same goal here, and that is to have the contamination cleaned up as fast as possible and have the park developed, complete with your nature center. That's why we have a solution which will prevent any further delay. A local company has agreed to remediate all contamination on the condition that you receive a 100-acre parcel and construct an environmental-friendly 9-hole golf course. Now, this golf course would be certified by the Audubon Society, which we think would be compatible with the goals of the Alliance, thereby sort of suiting this overall plan. And this is also very effective because it prevents further delay, which we realize is one of your main concerns. So would this sound like an accommodating solution?
Well, Christian, as our client has indicated in previous negotiations, a 9-hole golf course is not consistent with what they have believed as the original vision of a nature preserve on 200 acres.
So I understand that, Sydney. However, this is not an ordinary 9-hole golf course. This is certified by the Audubon Society. And it's comprised of 4 factors which are compatible with the nature center. So it wouldn't be anything as far as selling your soul. It would be actually compatible and maybe even enhance your current plans.
Well, before we go any further, I want to both address to you and Natalie, Christian, that our client is very disappointed about what has happened, and it's devastated their plan. They were expecting 200 acres of beautiful natural environment. And before we can even begin discussing a golf course, we need to understand the full extent of this contamination. So if you could please let us know how much of this 200-acre parcel is actually contaminated, that would help us with explaining the situation to our clients.
And I understand that your client is disappointed, and I'd like to say that our client is also disappointed. So I think we share in the disappointment and the problem that has arisen with the contamination. Contamination does stretch the entire 200 acres of the parcel, so it will need to be completely cleaned up.
However, this can be done immediately and will not disrupt any donation plans. We realize you're working with a 6-month to 1 year time frame. And our indications are that this will be cleaned up in that period, thereby keeping the project on track within the 4-year time limit.
Well, we would also like to see a diagram of how you plan to keep this golf course separate from this natural environment if we should agree to allow the city to have this golf course.
Certainly. Basically what would happen would be the parcel would be divided in half. The 100 acres would be designated to the Audubon certified 3-part golf course. Then on the other 100 acres, we were envisioning that the education center would be placed on a 10-acre parcel in the middle. Then it would be completely surrounded by the natural environment. That way, people going to the nature education would be completely sheltered by the surrounding nature and the beauty, and they wouldn't have to look at the golf course or even see the golf course due to the natural surroundings. On the other hand, we are willing, seeing as this is changing the plan, that we are willing to let the Earth Alliance decide anywhere on that 100-acre parcel where you would like to put the Nature Education Center. For example, if you don't think that in the center would be the most beneficial and consistent with your interests and concerns, you could feel free to place it anywhere on a 10-acre plot within that other half that's not being used for the golf course.
And how does the city is going to ensure that golf balls aren't going to fly onto the 100-acre nature preserve? Has there been any discussion with that?
Well, seeing that the golf course would be located at a distance significantly far away from the nature center, there shouldn't be any concern. Also, because the course is going to be developed with certain species of forests, plants, and things of that sort, that should deflect any concern about golf balls going onto your parcel.
And also in terms of liability reasons for the city, there are usually things you can set up, such as netting and various structures that would prevent golf balls from flying into the forest and perhaps hitting hikers on the head and so forth. Obviously, the city would not want to subject itself to that kind of liability.
And as far as cost to clean up, what is the city estimating that cost to be at?
We do not have an exact dollar amount for the cleanup. We know that it's going to be extensive, and it does exist in our budget. But we know that the developer is going to cover the complete cost of the cleanup. So basically, that would mean there would be no delay, and everything could move forward and would be ready to hand over the lease and the 10-acre parcel all cleared, prepared, ready for the Earth Alliance within the 4-year agreement.
So as I understand then, the cost will be completely covered by the price the developer is paying for the golf course.
Correct.
Yes, it'll be actually offset, thereby any money received from the developer would be used to clean up and things of that sort. So, but you can also think of these two parcels as sort of a comprehensive plan. I didn't get into specifics of what Audubon certified means, but I'd like to sort of tell you that because it actually is very compatible with your center.
Well, I just have one more question for you before we get into that. We want to be assured that all other viable solutions to raise these funds have been exhausted at this time. And we need that assurance from the city.
Well, actually, at this time, this is the major idea that we have. And it's a great idea because it addresses the solution right now. Other solutions could possibly, maybe better solutions could come 6 months to a year from now. However, at this point, it is the best solution we found at this point.
And it's the only one that we've started discussions with, negotiations with, actually been approached about, and is ready to go immediately. Otherwise, we'd have to perform substantial research, spend more money, and we don't even know if a better option would come up. And we also are getting the golf course, which originally was one of the mayor's main interests and visions for the lakefront property. Waterfront property.
We do have a suggestion for a possible another option in order to raise these funds. The Environmental Protection Agency has something called the Super Fund that they developed in the 80s. And that can help to cover the costs of cleanup of this type. So this is something that the Alliance would appreciate the city to look into. And maybe as we enter negotiations into that, we can do that as a number one goal, and then the golf course as maybe a backup option.
Well, at this point, I appreciate your idea. However, at this point, we have not been approached by the EPA with the Superfund idea or any other planners. Therefore, it would take extensive time to implement this plan, thereby likely delaying the project even further. City planners have already thought about the golf course idea and instituted sort of a plan. Any other additional or other plans we could consider, however, I'm just concerned about any other delay it would cause.
Because, for example, with EPA Superfund projects, and the city also looked into, for example, becoming a brownfield project, but we are excluded because of the PCB contamination. But any of kind of those, it's an extensive application process and meeting certain requirements. And our thought was that it was in the better interest for both of us to get this project running and be certain that it was going to move forward within the time period, because getting it done within the 4 years and keeping our promises to the donors as well as to the cities of Cornucopia would be the most beneficial.
Well, as this is inconsistent with our client's original view and their original MOU to not have this golf course on there, our clients would appreciate it to bring back to the city to at least contact the EPA for that.
Certainly. And we appreciate your idea. And as Natalie has suggested, we're aware that Superfund projects are not compatible with contamination with PCBs. It's just sort of a project that doesn't work by law. But we would be willing to bring the project idea back.
And just in talking about the golf course, I understand is the only main concern that you have is that it's not in line with your client's original vision. Can you expand more on that and say why? And because maybe we could work with that and talk more about the golf course and maybe come to, instead of dividing things up, we can expand on the idea of the golf course. That way we do have 2 options.
Well, as you said, this is incompatible with their original view that our client had, that it was going to be a 200-acre nature preserve.